Now, back in the day, I was a Republican. Now, why? Because we get into the country, and at the time, Ronald Reagan was running in 1980. I'm 10 years old. And my dad's a Republican because in Turkey he was a Sajid, and he'd been fighting against the soldiers. And the soldiers used to say the CIA runs everything in Turkey and it wants Turkey to fail. And I remember thinking, as I watched my dad argue with his friends, my dad would always make the same point. So why? We're allies. Why would they want Turkey to fail? It doesn't make any sense. Like, if you can give me a logical reason, I'm willing to listen, right? So I always grew up, and I thought my dad honestly made a perfectly good case, not just because he was my dad, but I thought it was very logical. So growing up, I was always viewed myself and my family as Sajid. Okay, we were on the side of capitalism, we believe in capitalism, we were on the side of America, we moved to America, we chose America, right? And so we come here, Ronald Reagan's on the right, and he says, we're gonna have morning in America, and America is the shining city on a hill, and we're gonna be strong. Turks love strength, right? So I was like, yeah! And peace through strength, and I remember the bumper stickers. And the top income bracket rate, if you remember back then, was 70%. So if you were in the top bracket, you would pay 70% of your taxes to the federal government. Now that's too much, 70%, it's crazy, that's nearly socialist. They call Barack Obama a socialist now. He's going to raise the top bracket from 36 to 39%, roughly, okay? So, and bring it back to the Clinton levels. It's not even quite the Clinton levels. For the top bracket it is, but not for everybody else. So an extra 3% in the tax rate for people making over $250,000 makes you a socialist? So we were socialists in the 1990s in America? Of course not. It's absolutely preposterous. So, but I like what Reagan is saying, and then George H.W. Bush came in, and I love the shining city on the hill. I love that. Because I thought America, if you believe in it, should be a model for everyone else. And then George H.W. Bush comes in, and he does two things that I really like. And he was my favorite president for a long time, and he's still among my favorite presidents. He did the New World Order. Now, New World Order has a bad meaning these days, because the right-wingers think, oh, that's the black helicopters, and the UN's going to take over, etc. It's absurd. It doesn't mean that at all. All it meant was, if one country invades another country illegally, does it the wrong way, we're all going to get together as a world and say, not on our watch. We're not going to let you do it, okay? And that's what happened when Iraq invaded Kuwait. Now look, when you grow up, you realize things are complex. Did we give a wink and a nod to Saddam Hussein? Did Bush's government? Maybe, right? And were we interested in the oil? Certainly, right? And I remember when I was in college, and kids had the signs, no blood for oil, no blood for oil. And I thought, liberal hippies, right? And I did a pro-war rally back when I was in college. So I was gung-ho Republican. Later, many, many years later, on our show, we had one of the top officials from the Bush administration, the first Bush administration. And I said, hey, listen, I like you guys, and you sound like a reasonable guy. I want to ask you, was it about the oil? And he said, of course! He said, look, it's not, we meant it. We meant the New World Order. We wanted a stable place where countries can get along together, can trade together, because we're all capitalists, we all want to make a lot of money, right? And the more trade, the better we get along, everybody makes more money. But, and so we believed in our ideals, we weren't kidding, but at the same time, if a country had invaded another country in Africa, we wouldn't have gone, okay? And because they did, all the time. Ethiopia and Eritrea fight all the time, and many other countries cross borders. And they said, we don't go to Africa because there's no oil in Africa. So both things are true. So you grow up, you learn these things, and you realize, hey, there are good principles that America fights for, but America also fights for oil. Keep it real. So, but I like what Bush did in going to Kuwait, and I like what Bush did in not going into Iraq, because we have all agreed, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Europe, and the Asian countries, America, we'd all agreed we're going to get Kuwait back, and we're not going to go to Iraq. And the right wing in this country got upset when Bush didn't go into Iraq. They said, oh, go get him, he's the bad guy, he's Saddam Hussein, we're going to go kill him. He said, but we didn't agree to go kill him. We agreed to get Kuwait back. So I totally agreed with that decision. And then he did one other thing that was brave. He said during the campaign, his campaigning against Dukakis in 1988, read my lips, no new taxes. And he got in office, and his advisors pulled him aside and said, because of Reagan, the deficits are out of control. And if we don't raise taxes, it's really going to hurt our economy. And you know what he did? He raised taxes. And he raised taxes full well knowing that he might lose the next time. And that's a rare act of courage from a politician. And you have to give him a lot of credit. So at this point in the story, you're thinking, well, this guy's going to vote for McCain, right? Because all I've done is praise the Republicans. But then they went off the deep end. So first, Clinton comes in, and I'll fast forward through Clinton. I was against him. I voted against him twice. But I'm watching him, and he balanced the budget, and I was like, wow. I thought the Republicans were supposed to balance the budget, but they didn't. They had terrible deficits, and Clinton balanced the budget. And then he did welfare reform, which I was always interested in as a Republican, and I was like, well, that's impressive. And the world loved him. You know, I don't know if you guys saw when he went to Turkey, and the crowds were all around him, and because he was smart and he had an effective foreign policy, he had an effective domestic policy. Now, it wasn't all right. You know, he got Somalia wrong. He went in there without a plan. A lot of guys got killed, and then we withdrew, right? But Reagan got Lebanon wrong. He had 282 killed, and then we withdrew. So overall, I thought at the end of the Clinton administration, well, those guys were a hell of a lot better than I thought they'd be, right? So then we come to W.